Alex Answer here. Welcome. It is early in the morning at the time of recording. It is 5:06 a.m. We'll talk a little bit about winter survival. I want to talk a little bit about Portland and other things. I want to thank Eli Ritchie for his generous donation of $50. Also, Patrick, I want to thank you as well. But to have it come from Portland, from someone like Eli at the time that I'm covering these things, makes it that much more special. I really do appreciate that. I really am um, affected adversely by the negative things that are taking place in Portland. And I really do appreciate that. And there's also some mild signs that I see that I need to continue doing what it is that I'm doing. But from one person to another, help another person out, contributing to someone else's message, especially when somebody else is struggling themselves and, to be frank, at risk. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. I really want people to check out his work. Pray for Eli Ritchie because he is exposing things in the Portland area that few others are. There aren't a lot of people, if you've taken the time to be a little OCD on YouTube, with the amount of coverage coming out of Portland. And there are way too many people that are throwing their hat in the ring, if you will, getting involved in the commentary regarding Portland that are not from Portland, that have a certain spite towards Portlanders as they talk about things with a very super political charge. There's plenty of things to love about elements of the Portland culture, not all of it, without it being completely destroyed by a argument about politics. Now, keep in mind, there are a lot of people out there that say, "Oh, I don't want to talk about politics," when what they're really saying is they don't want to talk about reality. There's a certain reality unfolding in Portland. Last night I watched the movie Mississippi Burning, and a lot of you aren't going to be able to get it. How the script of what the Klan was saying about the blacks back in the day, it's pretty similar to the rhetoric and tone. Also, accusations. You can hear those members of the Klan that were the police officers in the movie Mississippi Burning saying, "What are you, some sort of, lover up there with the commies up north?" Gee, we have a certain level of language now that's so black and white, talking about the commies and the muzzy lovers in today's day and age. And people don't seem to realize where this is going. And I've really been, I want to use my words carefully, but they're either going to get their way with the ethno state, or there's going to be people, agent provocateurs, push things to a certain level to create a certain amount of chaos to make the entire, because it'll probably later come out that it was a government operation. And maybe they'll expose that to the whole world, and the whole world will gasp in horror, right? Like these revelations of the text, Portland Gate, if you will, the text messages between Joey Gibson and the police commander, which is a red flag. And I talk about that in another video, how some people can argue that that's totally normal to be given like positions out and to be telling people when the police aren't going to be around, so they might have, um, the clear for their top goonba to be able to hit as many people as possible. And in recent days, people have been very busy on YouTube with their uploads in this organic, if you will, information war. All these videos are Some people just weren't paying attention. They say, "Oh yeah, fucking pond, Portland, you got this." Arrogance, arrogance is never a notable or a quality character attribute. We should not be arrogant about what we're dealing with and think that, people are just dealing with a few angry men on the internet. No, you're dealing with an operation. You're dealing with a psychological operation. And you're probably dealing with people that make lists of people that are their critics, especially those. That's why I said before, it's almost a blessing when some of us only reach a certain amount of people and not go viral. It's like any type of vocal opposition will be shot down. And that could be taken in a sense of literal or metaphoric. We don't know how far they're going to take their type of Civil War rhetoric. And so there are things that are being said today about violence regarding politics that are illegal by law. And it's wide out in the open that the law is not evenly enforced across the board. And in some cases, people are charged with crimes and assaults when all they did is lift their hands up to defend themselves or struggle. And we do live in a day and age where some officers will place those warrants on individuals based on their own prejudice. And no one would stop them. No one can stop them except the judge. The system is still set up and mandated for people to go before a judge if an officer of the law desires such. Okay, that's a system of enslavement. And it's really important that people start to understand some of these things. I mentioned before the speaker, Nellie Fuller Jr. And so in some cases, he's the only person, just so you know, that I will listen to for a bit of knowledge here or there. So he talks about from a perspective of, I don't know whether he lived in the South during the time of Mississippi burning, um, when that movie depicts a period in the South's history. And you need to understand that a lot of those people that had that mentality in the South are here in Colorado. And if you can imagine, right, a period in time in which there isn't necessarily any violence being done, but a period in time in which you have the one black guy in, say, an all-white neighborhood, and the fear that person may live under in the day and age in which his people are being killed. Well, there is a new age, and the new N-word is applied to a people that follow a particular religion, but the sickness is plenty of people see people of various ethnicities as by autopilot muzzies. Okay. You don't have to admit it. You should admit it to be in line with the truth, but that is what the truth is. And so now that we're at this point, and we have this type of language, commies, muzzy lovers, and it's literally a fast forward from 75 years ago in Mississippi, and they just changed the words around a little bit, and we have the same type of scenario. Watch Mississippi Burning. You can watch it on Hulu and take a look at the things that are being said there. Oh, all they're trying to do is preserve their heritage. All they're trying to do is preserve their this. And then what a lot of people forget is what it's really like in these small towns during periods in which the border discussion is at all-time highs. And so when numbers are put out there, so many millions of people invading per year, whether you believe that's true or not, the greater reality is then people look at people that feel like, oh, that person has the face of a foreigner. And it is like that scene in Mississippi Burning. It's like there's a scene where the FBI walks in and they're trying to talk to a black guy at the coffee shop about some information about the lynchings, and everybody's looking. Everybody's looking in their direction. Or when they're driving down the street, everybody's looking. All the Southerners are looking, and they're the outsiders up from New York trying to come down and change our ways. Right? I've also seen that in San Luis, Colorado, from the Hispanics there. It's not so much racial when we're talking about just the closed-minded mentality of people in various regions in the United States. When they see someone that clearly doesn't look like them, and they can put them in a particular box of their racial, biological, or religious enemy. And so we're definitely in a fallen world, and there's a time and a place to talk more in detail about that. But the main point here is that in some ways, we don't really change as a world. Evil is still evil, good is still good. And there almost seems to be a balance of good and evil. Sometimes the balance seems to be tipped. Right now, the balance seems to be tipped in the favor of evil. When we look at the comment sections, unless it's the channel that specifically addresses some element of truth, as far as I can see, it doesn't matter what the mainstream like news outlet might be, right? Unless they're getting a major push from a channel or an individual that is not on the right, but is either independent or on the left. Unless you're getting that added juice, it's all exclusively or right wing, a far right perspective, because there's left, there's right, then there's far left and far right. And far right would be individuals that are the white nationalism, people that are calling for violence to happen to others, people that laugh at other people being hurt, people that encourage violent acts like homicide. And I think that it would be irresponsible to accuse all of these of as being Russian bots. It would also be irresponsible to say that there are no bots. There are some bots, and there are people that now have the bot psychology, because that's ultimately how you save a buck, isn't it? For them to create such insane propaganda for a number of years, it's kind of like investing it so they build the rest of the house, the rest of the cage for free, right? Have some propaganda put in there, control Facebook from the inside, even though they claim that they've changed it, right? Control YouTube from the inside out. And thus, at a certain level, you don't need a bunch of agent provocateurs. They just need to control the information, to control the feed. And so you do have a collective of sleeper agents that are waiting for their signal, some type of a signal where their brigades go into action. And I think that there is a certain likelihood that a certain amount of American citizens, including non-Muslim, American-born, non-Democrats, just people that think for themselves, maybe including some Democrats, but really facing something like the siege and being silent about this during this brief period in which we're alive in human form isn't going to do anyone justice. It's not going to help us, as Nellie Fuller says, produce justice. That is the antidote. He even says we need an anti-racist code. And so now you have a day and age where people can talk about issues with a level of intellectualism without engaging in hatred themselves, but they will still be called racist no matter what by even addressing racism. That is the new Orwellian reality, and nothing that we can say, nothing that I can say is ever going to change that. And once you see types of signs like this within our society, these types of baseless accusations that by merely discussing things that we're going through, are going through, that somehow we're attacking others, that's not accurate at all. That is mental illness. And that's the type of rhetoric that comes before people get whacked. As far as I'm concerned, some of us may be dead already. And it's time to come to terms with this. It's time to come to terms with our slavery. It's time to come to terms with what is being done to our peers. So we're not allowed to talk about it. Why do some of us retreat to the woods instead of be active in the world where maybe we can make an effective change? What are the different components that lead to that type of exile of people that actually have a talent great enough to do something more? I will be the one to at least share my story and share that perspective in a world of billions to where I know that I'm not alone. In a world to where in reality a guy like me would be the most capable at any behavioral health or counseling or therapist center, because there's going to be a whole fleet of children, many biracial in the years ahead, that may not have the will to live because of what they have been exposed to about their perceived value in this world or lack of value. You need to keep even this into consideration. Even the day and age of slavery and other periods, which were brutal periods, the social media component wasn't there as a 24/7 type of mechanism to remind them how hated they were all throughout America. It was them and their community. But even them and their community, there would be other people like them. What we have right now is we have social media that's showing people not only the hate, but the silence of others. That we're not like them. We're on the left. We vote for Bernie. Well, why are you so silent about the issues that matter? So the type of break, illusions of separation that I'm talking about is not just simply something that's pointed at Trump supporters, but also pointed at elements of the Portland activist base that think that somehow they have some sort of a foothold in overcoming extremism, racism, white supremacy, if you can't even deal with anti-themism and how some people, they're a little bit of both, can be exiled by both sides and the type of repercussions for such, then how are you going to win and evolve forward? It seems to me that things are going to smash downwards or go through a breakdown. Things are going to get worse, the system, before things get better. And we should not be overly attached to the body and the things that could happen to us. We're now at this level to where so many different potential realities are possible. The fallen human consciousness has never been more clear. The women of this audience, especially long-term viewers, they're probably not even around anymore, have never been quieter. There are reasons for this. It's not just the winter and the freezing temperatures outside. So the reason I have on this bodysuit is to keep the heat retained within me, to get through this week as a trial run in a test to see and gauge my survivability, um, with regards to not using any heat at all. Notice I'm also not wearing gloves. So it's like literally like 0 degrees outside. It was like -10 for most of the night the other night. And it's like 30 degrees less in the San Luis Valley in some cases on some nights, deeper into the sub-zero temperatures. And so I'm fortunate that I'm in a off-grid part of Colorado that's not as cold. It's cold, it's not as cold. And so there's going to be periods where constantly, people ask about fireplaces, and I remind you about my economic situation. Those things are not free, and some things require a little bit of construction, right? And so I don't have certain resources. Most people use propane. This is a small little space. So those of you that have never lived off grid and never lived without conventional heat that you just flip on may not know about that. And you may not know that it's kind of talking down to someone if you think that it's literally going from conventional heat in the city to straight being fully off the grid like Bear Gorillas with an actual fireplace where it's just fire, fire, ar, ar, ar. It's like, a lot of people look at others, people like me, and they're like, whoa, you should be at this level. Dude, this isn't reality TV. This is the real world. This isn't like Hollywood reality TV. Or this isn't like Doomsday Preppers. We're like, guy out in the woods, Alex Hanser has all his preps. Look at all these canned food. There's actually only a few cans over there. What? You mean you live like literally like, yes, I do. And I'm not trying to hold on to this world. The threat that people like myself are under by just speaking what's on our mind has never been greater. The disconnect between that and our own audience has never been greater. Now, there's elements of you that are the minority, and I can feel that your spirit is still there. I want to thank Patrick for your donation. As I come in on my 39th birthday, there's really not a lot that I have to show for myself, having made it this far, except for my information and the fact that I'm at least able to focus here on the things that I'm saying for the moment in time. As far as the future, it looks like a terrifying future as I grow older, as I age. And as I age, my self esteem takes a greater hit as I see various elements of my face age as well. And I look at how the world treats me when I'm walking amongst it. And I know what's in their media, I know what's in their concerns. Again, Muslim invasion, Mexico invasion. And who's this guy we've never seen before who looks unshaven, who looks a little nervous? Is he a threat to us? Even before 2015, I felt that in Portland, and I would talk about it, and then people would attack me for it, as if I was attacking white people. And so I would also come to realize that white people attack white people all the time in general, and they have these passes, and it's okay, because they're not seen as something outside of the culture. I've never lived outside this culture. I was raised my whole life as a child, most of it with my mother. That wasn't exactly great. That's a big difference between someone that grew up overseas or with both sides of the family or with two cultures. Definitely anything but multicultural. But are we now in a day and age where just simply how your face looks determines then in the minds of these people your legal status, your religious status, your political affiliation? The answer is yes. And if you talk about what's real, then you'll be attacked. That's not a society on its way to any enlightenment. We're going down, and we're going down hard. I went to a coffee shop once in town, right? And I can feel some eyes on me. There's a small coffee shop. It's almost like prison. Like, boy, you in my seat. And they literally said Obama really fucked up our nation with all this immigration, and they were looking at me. And that's a way you can fuck with somebody. You just look at them and say, Obama really fucked up our nation with all this immigration. And I laughed after a couple of minutes. They're literally like looking over my shoulder, seeing what I'm looking at. So I know they're probably Alex Jones nuts. So just to fuck with them even more, I put up Infowars.com as if I was another Kool-Aid drinker like them. But as someone that was like a promoter of Alex Jones and did my own street rallies and demonstrations in Portland, I, of all people, know the cult of personality that surrounds him and how much he's changed. So when I see what's being put out there in the media and how high this stuff is trending, I know that I'm not safe in your society without an underground railroad for the things that are to come. And since I started to mention to you that I feel like my life is in danger, none of you on any level have contacted me to provide some sort of auxiliary support if my life was in danger. So, as far as I'm concerned, I'm moving forward with the things that I'm speaking of, but because of the limitations that I'm facing, you don't get it all. And there aren't enough of you that are real world allies. There aren't enough of you that are of the female gender that have been consistently saying maybe hello over the couple last few years. I even mentioned contacted someone in Portland about potentially sending my content to bring it back to Portland, and they didn't hear back from me, and I respect that. So that'd be an example of someone from my past saying, you know what, you're in my past, Alex, and you're going to stay in my past. Whatever we are in this reality of 2019, you're not in it. It would just simply be a coincidence that the moment that all the Islam invasion news went viral, that my personal real friendship base here and everywhere dropped to nothingness. And when I would talk about that, they would then see me as an enemy and accuse me of attacking them. These are things that lead to equivalents of like the cross burning in the driveway. Only here, that wouldn't go down very well because that can trigger a fire. But there's ever other ways in which you can take someone out, in which people are taken out. And all society ever really does is just watch their people be taken out while doing really nothing to stop it. Um, I want to thank Eli. I want to thank Patrick for your birthday donation. I'm going to stop the video, upload it, and maybe come back with something later. But yeah, don't take advantage of people, but don't take life for granted and your freedom for granted. And this free flow of communication, nearly everyone does. Nearly everyone does. Okay. I would never be more disconnected from the human species than I am now. The donation energy would keep me going to a certain degree, resources, things of that nature. If things were to change greatly, I would get a small apartment for $300 a month. I'm very far from that. But let's just say hypothetically, somebody with the means who wanted to help on a more regular basis, I think that I can be a bigger asset to the independent media if I was to relocate again anytime between now and next year to somewhere more populated or rural, but not so off the grid where no one can hear you scream. And if they do, they'll probably, get off to it. I want something else. I'm praying daily for change. I'm praying daily for an intervention from the Creator. Now, that intervention can come through an audience member, or it can come through like a random human outside of my YouTube channel. But I'm currently in an active state of prayer for some sort of intervention so I can geographically work somewhere else and also stay within, a few hundred miles of here. Um, Random people that are on the East Coast and West Coast that throw out random invitations just across the nation without establishing genuine friendship first, that is irresponsible. People need to establish relationships, talking, communication, phone calls, Skype conferences before cross country geographic relocations. Just because this is 2019, right, and it's no longer 2013, doesn't mean that people don't play the same games. People always play the same games. People like and almost get off on the idea of internet celebrityism and the idea of connecting with someone on the internet and even drawing that person to a certain region. It doesn't mean that when that person gets there, that there's even a bed on the ground. And so, like, there really is a true nature of human psychology of elements of the audience can throw major interference for any public speaker that they're able to establish a cordage with. And so I've really been in a state of deep prayer for the Creator to send a higher caliber of female and or male with regards to things regarding friendship. Right now, it's total silence. And there are people with psychological disturbances that will contact me almost as if they want my take on certain things. And that's not what I feel like I have the energy or prana to just leak into. Let that leak into someone. I need something higher caliber, real deal, real human, full human. Um, what I see now is the end of the world, the end of the nurturing female, the silence that speaks louder than words, the judgment. I can feel the psychic judgment. I can feel the judgment. I can feel these types of assumptions. These are things that lead to whole scale groups of people being removed off the planet forever. And I want those of you, as you things get worse, to not waste your time blaming Patriot Prayer, Joey Gibson, Charlottesville, things of that nature. I want you to investigate that silence within that says, that's not our problem. He's a weirdo. Let's just kind of like roll our eyes at this while we continue to just hump on our significant other as you ejaculate day after day after day into your person. Like, what about like the real humans that saw something more in their fellow brother and sister in the independent media, where they weren't just into you, just their own little world, their own little children and their own little significant others, but they were like tapped into like a larger world. They were beyond human, even not almost like losing their humanity while falsely confusing themselves or being ultra, but genuine, advanced humans with empathy and compassion and a willingness to help.